My name is Sam, and I'm from the K group of Microcampus. Microcampus is a one-in-a-lifetime experience where 16 8th graders go out to Yunnan in a village called Xizhou, a peaceful old town which is open to visitors and tourists. The Microcampus experience forces kids to step outside the comfort zone and try new things. For some kids, it might be a life-changing experience with great benefits. For others, it's a whole month with too much work. Each person has a different inquiry project that they research. There's a lot of topics you could choose from, varying from history to culture. I chose wall propaganda because I like history, and seeing the different sides of history appealed to me. I've only heard of the classroom side of Chinese history, so I thought it would be very interesting to hear what the locals think of Chinese history. But I'm not talking about normal wall propaganda. I'm focusing more than anything on wall charts. Wall charts were charts written on the wall, surprisingly. They had on them quotas of amounts of grain and amount of labor per month or per year. Scattered through Xizhou, there's lots and lots of wall charts. Each have a different setup and a different history. If you look at the date 1964, that's between the Great Leap Forward, which was from 1958 to 1961, and the Cultural Revolution, 1966 to 1976. During that in-between, according to history books, was a time when crop production was better than ever. And this is thanks to the wall chart. To truly understand wall chart 18 and the various layers, one must delve into the history of the local village during the Great Leap Forward, the post-Great Leap Forward reform period during the wall chart, and from 1966 onward. 1958, the start of the Great Leap Forward. The Great Leap Forward is the time when Mao Zedong encouraged the people that the new China should jump forward in grain production, steel, and technology production. Of course, this was a terrible idea since the people weren't ready for this big of a jump and would occasionally lie to make the government proud or impressed. Take, for example, one village will tell the government that they'll make 100 kilograms of grain. The government agrees, but asks for 10% of the grains when they're done. The next village overhears this and tells the government that they can make 2,000 kilograms of grain to prove that they're more superior than the other village, to make the government more proud. The first village hears this and bumps theirs up to 3,000, and the other village to 4,000, and so on and so forth, till the first village has promised 100,000 kilograms of grain. After a year, the village makes the most of what it can, and when the government comes to ask if they've reached their 10,000 goal, they said they had, wanting to impress the government, when they've actually only made 1,000. When the government said, okay, now give us the 10%, which will be 1,000, the government takes the 1,000 and leaves, causing famine and starvation, and that's why Mao didn't know about it and didn't act on it. Since Mao didn't know and didn't act on the food production, and since he heard small villages like Xizhou were making 100,000 kilograms of grain, the propaganda was of happy farmers with plentiful food and colorful writing. For example, this is a wall chart next to an old cafeteria, and it's a colorful Ai holding plenty of food, smiling. I interviewed Mrs. Liu about it, learning that it was a poster next to an old cafeteria. On wall chart 18, on the front, you can't see any signs of wall propaganda from this time. In this book I was reading, just named Yunnan, this book had a picture of an original wall chart before the plaster and the sign. I was looking at this book while I was at the wall chart, and I noticed the connection of a little bag of blue rice at the bottom of the left-hand corner, and Miss Mai and I made the connection and realized it's the same wall chart. Taking the photo from the book and combining it with the original photo in poor photoshopping, I was able to create an almost original version of the wall chart, minus the brown parts that weren't shown in the original or in the photo. After the Great Leap Forward and the famine, the government threw out all the lying, dishonest government officials and only replaced them with new, trustful, loyal officials. These officials set up new methods to make sure the Great Leap Forward would never happen again, and set up crop production methods like the wall chart. Crop production became never better than ever before. The wall chart works a bit like this. Representative of the family. They wrote their name up here. They stated their job, their status, and their gender. So this wall chart number 23, it had quotas for amounts of grain and crop per month. So each month you had to write how much grain you achieved that previous month. So this wall chart number 23 is much more complex than the other wall charts because it takes into consideration of the cost of fertilization, the cost of feeding your animals, the cost of feeding yourselves, the cost of the farm work, and much more. But this isn't the wall chart I'll be focusing on. The wall chart I'll be focusing on is wall chart number 18. It has a very different setup and a very different style than this wall chart. Wall chart 18 also has one family member that represents the family and has the status, job, and gender, and so forth. But instead of amount of grain, it has a requirement of how much work you put in. Basically, it measures your labor and how hard you work per year. It's measured in gongfan, and you can use this measurement of work to exchange it for food and money when the government officials come. It was an improvement from the Great Leap Forward, but the wall charts were hard and unforgiving. The more family members you had, the higher your quota was. So if you had 8 to 9 kids, but only 2 family members were actually fit to work, those families would have to work extra hard to reach the quota and feed the family. I call this wall chart 18 because this is work group 18 or 18. A work group is a group of families that report to the same government official. The 3 main wall charts I'm working on is wall chart 18, wall chart 23, and the cheese factory wall chart, which is so defaced you can't tell what team it's from. The Cultural Revolution started in 1966 through 1976. It was a time when Mao got back into power and threw out anyone or anything from before, during the time when the wall charts were in action. He put the wall charts out of work, and all the officials that were overseeing it. You can literally see the end of the wall chart and the start of the Cultural Revolution in wall chart 23. After a certain amount of months, the quotas and the results just end, and in replace there's a quote from Mao's Red Book. In wall chart 18, there's no quote, but the wall chart also just stops with no more quotas and no more results. After the Cultural Revolution and later in life, the wall chart has been covered by a government-protected sign, calling it a protected building, which is pretty ironic, given that the sign that says not to vandalize the wall is vandalizing the wall. The white paint there has been put up by the local people wanting to redo their wall, but they didn't get to finish it because while they were painting it over, Mr. Linden walked right in and saw what they were doing and told them that this wall chart is a very interesting and unique piece of history and should be protected. Each wall chart is very different from all the others and has a completely different story to tell. Wall chart 18 itself shows the changes from Great Leap Forward, the time when the wall chart was in action, in 1966 and onwards. In the village of Xizhou, being aware of history and noticing the walls can be very beneficial and very interesting, with a new story to be told with each wall.